the meeting to order. Join me for the pledge, please. Before everybody sits down, I'd like to have a moment of silence for those that lost their lives in the terrorist attack 22 years ago. Thank you for that. Start with a roll call, please.
Callahan? Here. Houston?
Here.
Hannah?
Yes.
Moore?
Here.
Crusader?
Here.
O'Laughlin?
Yes.
Jensen? Here.
Next, we move to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Next, we move to the public comment. I understand we have someone that would like to lecture us. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
I'll try not to touch anything so it doesn't jiggle. Leanne Harrison, 514 Fifth Avenue Southwest, president for the local historical society. Just updating you on the events that has happened this summer. And for the underground, we had over 400 visitors, 7 from out of state, some that stayed overnight, so that benefited the hotel motel tax. And it was a very nice day. We had 50 volunteers to pull this off, and cooperation from the businesses that were also involved. The next is the Wapsipinicon Mill is closing for the season on Saturday, September 16th. However, we will be open on Saturday mornings for the farmers market. The farmers market closes on October 14th. On the annual farmers market soup at the mill on Saturday morning, Saturday, October 6th, from 9 until noon. So everybody come and have luscious different types of soups. The Lee Mansion is now open every weekend on Saturday and Sunday from 1 until 3. Heartland Acres Halloween Fun is scheduled for Sunday, October 29th from 1 until 3. Children are free with a paying adult, and costumes are encouraged. So that's what's been going on with us all summer long.
How's the activity with the Lee Mansion going in the end?
It's been kind of slow because people aren't aware that we are open, and so we're trying to get the word out there. And everything is up to date with it, and all the furniture is there, and all the artifacts, and people are just amazed of how much we have done.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Liam.
Dave, any other cards? Okay, we'll move to the proclamation. Whereas 2,194 rail grade crossing collisions resulted in 803 personal injuries and were responsible for 274 fatalities in the United States during 2022. And whereas 1,208 pedestrian trespassing casualties have occurred in the United States, resulting in 658 pedestrians being killed and another 550 injured while trespassing on railroad property rights-of-way during 2022. Whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that railroad right-of-ways are private property, enhancing public awareness of dangers associated with the highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways and obeying established traffic laws. Those things will all reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the National Operation Lifesaver, United States Department of Transportation, and all local, state, county, and railroad law enforcement officers first responders and railway corporations commit to partnering together in an effort to educate at a national level all aspects of railroad safety to enforce applicable laws in support of the National Rail Safety Week. Therefore, I, Brad Bleichner, Mayor of Independence, Iowa, do hereby attest my full support proclaiming September 18th to the 24th, 2023 as National Rail Safety Week, and I encourage all citizens to recognize the importance of rail safety education. Next, we'll move to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept and approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the August 28, 2023 regular meeting?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Passes 7-0. We next move to the approval of claims. First, I need a motion to approve the claims for payment.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with regard to any of the claims?
What was the roughly $4,000 to Pizza Ranch for?
Concessions.
Concessions for where?
They bring pizza to the pool.
Parks and Rec? Okay.
Anything else? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Passes 7-0. Next, we move to the revenues and expenses to date. This is for information only. Has everybody had a chance to look at that? Any questions regarding the revenues and expenses to date? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the hearings and ordinances. First, I need a motion to set a public hearing date for September 25, 2023 at 5:00 p.m. for the fiscal year 2024 budget amendment number 1.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. There's not, we've talked about this, there isn't any need for discussion about it. With the setting of the hearing for September 25th, we would then vote to approve this on October the 9th. All in favor of the motion itself?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item B, which is the ordinance amendment, chapters 50 and 51. I need a motion to approve the first reading of an ordinance that amends provisions pertaining to nuisance abatement procedures and junk vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I know we talked about this at the work session. Does anybody have anything further that they felt discussed? I know we had our city attorney present at the time to answer questions then. Anybody have any questions or comments at this point before we move to a vote on that?
Was there any questions last week then? Since I wasn't here.
Not anything significant. I think there was a little bit of discussion about where we were, how we were going to enforce some things and how we were going to handle some things involving when the city attorney would be involved in things, and et cetera. But in terms of the actual ordinances themselves, there wasn't anything that, any word changes or anybody had anything specific that they were concerned about with regard to the drafted document itself.
Okay. Now, as far as the ordinances, do we have them currently? Do we not have them currently?
You're voting on right now the amendment to chapters 50 and 51. That's the purpose of this motion.
Did we have them previously?
We had
Yes,
those chapters, but there were changes that were made based upon what the city attorney had and what we came up with in terms of how we're going to enforce things in the future.
Significant?
There's a lot, quite a few lines that we did away with that had loopholes.
Duplications.
And duplications.
If you look back at the work session agenda, there's a red line version of what was changed, so you can see.
You're requiring me to do some extra work then?
Everything really looked pretty updated and
Cleaned
up to
up.
oil as far as all of us were.
Once you read through the changes, you'll see it was stuff that was needed.
It was good.
Clarified a lot of things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in further discussion with regard to this then? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote on the motion.
Houston,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Crusader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Callahan.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Staff has recommended that, in addition to approving the first reading, that we also waive the second and third readings to adopt the ordinance during the meeting. and to authorize the mayor to sign the ordinance. Do I have a motion in order to,
So moved. Second.
hold on one second. So the motion would be that the statutory rule requiring an ordinance to be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting in which it's finally passed be suspended.
That's the first one.
So I've got a motion and a second. Discussion with regard to that? Hearing none, that's a roll call vote also.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Crusader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
Houston.
No,
That passes 6-1, so that's sufficient in order to move forward then. So now I need a motion to have this ordinance that amends pertaining passage for adoption pursuant to Iowa Code Section 380.3.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion with regard to that? Hearing none, we move to a roll call vote.
Moore,
Yes.
Crusader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
Houston,
yes,
Hannah.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to the resolutions. The first resolution that we're going to talk about is with regard to the engineering services agreement for the 2024 street rehabilitation project. I need a motion to approve the city manager to sign the agreement with Crawford Engineering for engineering services for the 2024 street rehabilitation project.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Just to bring everybody up to speed, where we are on this is we previously had a 5-year prioritization program that we have in effect. We then had the year 2023 where we had our the rehabilitation project that was ongoing, and it's not quite finished yet. And then this is for the actual engineering for the 2024 year. And then once we have the engineering in place, then we would move forward with at the appropriate time for the bids with respect to the actual construction of the project.
So this is a 5-year project, is
No, we have, no.
This is 1 year out of the 5.
1 year out of the 5, okay.
Yeah, what we did last year was we developed a 5-year plan, but it's a rolling 5-year plan. So once we finish 2023, somebody help me with the math here, but we'll add 1 more year to the back end of that so that we'll always have 5 years of a plan. The reason for that is to make sure that when we have grants and other things that are available for us, we can take advantage of them without having the number of years wind down and run out so that we don't know what we're doing in the coming two years or 3 years.
So do we have grants for this next year?
No, so funding for this project was part of the spring bond that was issued earlier.
Just so everybody's kind of aware of what we've done, I believe, I don't know if I get this right, correct me if I'm wrong, what we did in the past was we used $272,000 as the number that we were going to be using for our construction costs. This year, we decided that probably wasn't enough money in order to complete the project, so we raised it to $350,000. That does not include the engineering costs. The engineering costs would be on top of that. So for 2020, for the 2023 work, the engineering costs that we paid was $44,000. And we'd also paid $14,200 for the prioritization update to set the 5-year plan in place. We're now being asked in this motion to $57,700 projects. This is a little bit more block-wise or mile-wise than was the 2023 project, and it's had a little bit of discussion with Crawford Engineering about the price itself and how they're calculating it, and they're using a little bit different numbers than us, because what we used was a total plus what we used calculated as $63,000 for the engineering. So that's how we came up with our number. Crawford is indicating that they feel that the bids will come in and that the actual total construction will be $429,000. So they're then taking 13.4% as an engineering fee for that work, which is how they get to the 57,700 number, which moves the actual total cost of the work up to 486,700, which is a little bit more than what we had anticipated when we did the bonding, but it's not something that we can afford in terms of the budget, at least is my understanding. We'd prefer it to be less, of course. So there's a couple things that we can talk about, but they don't have to be talked about at this moment in time. One of them is, do we have too many streets in this particular project? Have we added too much to this project? I think it's 11 blocks, and I think we did 7 this last year. So by going to 11, we've increased the numbers a little bit in terms of the number. Do we need to be concerned that we're biting off more than we can chew by having too many blocks, and as a result of that, having a higher price itself? My understanding is that when we go to do the actual bids for the work itself, we can change the scope of the work and have that bid for less, or have it an alternative bid for less, so that we can look at that. But that's not before you right now. What's before you right now is only the issue about the approval of the Crawford engineering work for the 57,700. And I don't know, and this is something that we would talk to Crawford Engineering about, is if we decide to go with a lesser number of blocks and a lesser amount, whether they would adjust their percentage and the engineering fee would drop, or whether the engineering fee would remain at the 7,700. So we have not had that discussion with them, and we would have that discussion with them at the appropriate time. But that's just something else to think about.
The one thing I would point out in regard to that, I don't believe that Mark and Brian and them are going to bill us for the entire amount if we were to reduce those streets. I think they're going to bill us what they need to do the work.
Well, aren't you using the rough 13% as a guideline?
Well, it's
Not, that's just what it happens to be this time. The
Right.
number fluctuates, and generally, engineering fees can be anywhere between, say, 10% and 20%. Is the range for that. Depends on the type of work that's involved, how much plans are involved. It's not uncommon at all to have this be a percentage. We have an hourly rate from Crawford Engineering in terms of what they charge for things, but this is not on an hourly rate basis. This is, they're giving us a percentage basis.
Would the hourly rate be cheaper?
It depends on how many hours they had. The standard hourly rate for Crawford, as I understand it, is approximately
for an engineer one, it was $110,000 or $110 an hour.
$110 per hour, and engineer two is 85.
Right.
And then they've got other technicians, which are 50, and office technicians, 45, and other types of people that would be involved in the process itself. But it just depends on the type of work that's being involved, how specialized it is, also a lot of other things. But Crawford is not giving us this proposal as an hourly rate proposal. This is a proposal based upon the percentage itself.
Well, it's essentially a lump sum not to exceed number. Okay. And they'll handle it internally, whether they go over that, or whether they need that entire amount or not.
So I guess one of my questions is, we have a lot of things we'd like to do. Do we need to cut back on the street project in order to accommodate some of the other projects we want to do? And we have these people coming in and the projects that we want to do through this Trees Forever.
We've already distinguished or identified how the bond proceeds are going to be used.
Okay.
We can't all of a sudden change it and use it for something totally different, so.
I'm just saying, wasn't there going to be an overdraft with this 11 blocks?
There is, but we've already, once you've identified how you're gonna use bond proceeds, you have to.
Which is fine, but then where does that extra money come from beyond what we
It,
budgeted?
essentially, the project fund will go negative, and then I just have to pay it back with local options over time to make it whole.
And when we take local option sales tax, though, then we can't use that for other projects, right?
That's what I guess I'm getting at,
It
that some of the projects
is,
we'd
but
like to do.
with how government accounting and how you designate how you're using certain funds, I've got it on a 5-6 year payback to address negative project funds, so.
If we decided that we wanted to, Susie, this is a question for you. If we decided that we wanted to reduce the amount of streets that we're going to do and therefore reduce the total cost, and we've already got this money set aside for it, spread that money over to the following year, so
I
there's...
have 2 years to use bond proceeds.
Okay, so for the 2024 money could be 5 or 26.
No. I have 2 years from once we receive the money, I have 2 years to spend.
So it has to be spent by March of '25.
Yes.
By March 25.
Can we get bids for 9 blocks and 11 blocks?
Yes, so when we put the bids out, and I haven't had a chance to talk with Mark about this, but I know we can do this. When you put the bids out, you can do a bid alternate where you basically select a group of streets and say, these are your priorities that need to be done no matter what, and you put the others on as an alternate. When we submit the bids, then the council can choose, do we want to do all of it, or do we only want to do the core, or what do we want to do? You can absolutely structure it. I would not do it individually per street, because you'll actually shoot yourself in the foot, because some of those costs that are shared between all of them are going to get allocated to each individual multiple times, because they don't know what you're going to do. So I would suggest we do a core package and we add those others. As far as pushing streets to the next year, we've got several that are on this year's plan. We've got, what, 7? Well, we have 11 blocks, but 7 streets that we're doing with this one. Next year, we've got 9 identified right now.
9 and 12.
And it's got a budget price of $468,000 instead of $429. So if if we push to next year some of these, it just makes that number even bigger next year.
Streets are an essential part of our community, obviously, so I really don't want to see us go away from this plan we're doing here. If we need to make adjustments, we need to make them for the following year, for 2024, in my opinion.
What's your suggestion?
My suggestion is you move forward with the engineering, and when we do the construction piece of it, we'll see what bids we get. I mean, we just don't know what we're going to get. We could have a really good year and bids could come in really low. Or we could have an absolutely horrible year and bids could come in high. We just don't know. I mean, we're working with forecasted budgeted numbers at this point. We don't have actuals other than the one that's in front of us for the engineering.
I agree with Brian that we need to stick with the program, and we've gone too many years of neglecting the streets, and to start delaying some of them now is just going to snowball, like you said, Matt, later on. So
Well, 2024 will be 8 years that we've done this, at least 10 blocks every year. 10 blocks.
9.
Yeah, 9 to 10, so we're on track.
I mean, the other thing, the mayor and I talked about this a little bit beforehand too. The other thing that I pointed out was, we've got this program for 2024 that we're talking about, the engineering piece for tonight. We have one for 2025, but then in 2026, the only thing we're doing in 2026 is First Street West. That's a $4.5 million project.
Exactly.
That's got-
And the $37 million waste treatment.
Well, that's another discussion, but yeah.
It's expensive
So-
here.
That
I mean-
needs to remain foremost in people's mind, because that's the largest expenditure in the history of the city, this community.
Yeah. There's just some things sitting out there, the big things coming that we need to plan for.
So would we have more luck getting funding for
We have secured STBG funding for First Street West. It's 1.389 million, 1.4, call it 1.3 million. Around there. When you're talking those numbers, $10,000 is, but 1.4 million was what's been allocated, for lack of a better term, to us from STBG funds through Intercog. So
Out of what,
that's 4.5 is the estimate right now.
So,
Pretty close, yeah, 3.1.
Well, and we'd like to see if there's some other funding that we can come up with.
Right, well, absolutely.
build back.
That might come up at that
We'll
at that
absolutely
time,
keep
because
looking at
we're
it.
talking 26
Right,
Correct.
for that.
right. We'll absolutely keep looking at additional funding options. I know.
Now, the only other question I have, with our 24 and 25 rehabilitation schedule, is if we have a major sewer line problem or something on one of the roads that's projected for 25, and say it happens in the year of 24, are we able to switch something out of 24 and put it into 25 or not,
You can move streets from one year to another.
without a funding problem?
Right, the issue is if you've said that we're going to spend a certain amount of funding on a rehab project, that's what we need to spend on the project.
So it doesn't matter which streets we have designated?
Not to my knowledge, unless
I just wanted to
unless you
clarify
have
that.
something different on that, Susie, but that's how I understand it.
No, you can, my understanding, and it would have to check with Crawford's, but you can change streets out. It's just, once you have the funding designated, it has to be spent that way.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so let's move back on topic. The topic that we have here is the approval of the agreement with Crawford Engineering for the services for the 2024 street rehabilitation project. So,
I've got a motion.
I've got a motion and a second, so I just want to make sure there's no discussion with regard to that topic, and if there is none, then we would call for a roll call vote.
So I just need to understand, this is a price that we're going to pay no matter what?
No, not to exceed, no.
Not
This is
to
the most
exceed
we'd
it?
spend.
Okay.
Right, 57.7 would be the most that it would cost to get this engineering work done for this project as it's currently programmed.
Okay, so roll call vote then.
Crusader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes,
Jensen,
Yes.
Callahan. Yes. Houston.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item B, which is to accept the work covering the airport AOS project. I need a motion to approve a resolution that accepts the work covering the airport AWOS project and authorizes the mayor to sign the resolution.
so moved.
Second.
Look at your,
So the whole AWAS system was updated?
yes. And this has all been approved. The engineering's all looked at it. They've accepted it. Our Brett's looked at it. He's satisfied with it. I don't think it's gone to count committee because it doesn't have to, right?
It doesn't have to, no. So this, under
The
chapter,
FAA has to approve it.
the
right?
FAA signed off on it, right?
Yeah, the FAA, but I was talking about our board itself, our airport board.
The airport board, no. Under chapter 573 of the Iowa Code, you have to do this resolution, which starts at 30-day clock for when you can then release the retainage to finish on it. So that's what this is for.
Okay.
So we release it, and then the board has to, the airport board? has
Airport
to-
board doesn't
They
approve.
don't have anything
Airport board
to do
doesn't
with
have
that.
to do anything.
Pretty much anything that relates, a little bit off topic, sorry, Susie, but anything that relates to funding, this body approves, the board doesn't. They make recommendations, but they don't have approving authority over that.
But everybody that needs to says it's the way it should be, so we
Correct.
can pay for it.
That's right.
Correct.
That was, I wanted to make sure.
So roll call vote then.
O'Laughlin.
Yes,
Jensen.
Yes.
Callahan. Yes. Houston.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Crusader.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item C, which is to accept the work covering the Independence Police Station remodel project. I need a motion to approve a resolution that accepts the work covering the Independence Police Station remodel project and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Again, this is just, everything's been approved on this. We just need council to approve the actual work itself so that we can fund it and do the final things that are necessary with the project itself. Discussion? Hearing none, we move to a roll call vote then.
Jensen.
Yes.
Callahan. Yes. Houston.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Crusader.
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
yes,
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item D, which is the agreement for feral cat sterilization and rabies vaccination services. I need a motion to authorize the city manager to sign the agreement with Premier Annual Wellness and Surgery for feral cat sterilization, rabies vaccination, and euthanasia services. I need the motion and the second first.
So moved.
second.
I have a motion and a second. We talked about this at our work session. This is just the issue of signing the agreement with PAWS in terms of the dates and the amounts, et cetera. There's information in the agreement itself that discusses the option of whether to euthanasia or to return them to the exact location where they took them, et cetera. But those are not things that we're talking about specifically. We're just talking about approving the agreement itself, so that we had an agreement similar to this with Pipestone in the past, and now we're moving forward with pause on this. So that's what's before you. Is there further discussion with regard to that?
I do have a question, and I don't know if we're going to discuss this later or not, but on the 1 of 1, under the discussion at the lower part of that paragraph, it says, if no owners wish for the animal to be returned and it is clear that the animal is not a pet, then euthanization, can take place. My question is, we trap a cat in your neighborhood. You have 6 or 8 houses nearby that area. If one person says, no, they don't want it euthanized, and the other 7 say, yes, we do want to euthanize it, according to this, we take it back and release it.
That's correct.
So what we're voting on deals with everything written here in the discussion and everything, or
It
not?
does not. What you're voting on is approving the contract, the city to enter in, well, you're approving me to sign the contract to enter the city into the contract with pause for these services at these dollar rates. This discussion, what was in there, was based on what we talked about during the work session. If that's not the direction of this body, we can go a different direction, even though this
So we can go ahead and sign the contract.
Correct.
But we can make some of these
Correct.
changes at a later date.
correct.
Right, because we can always change our ordinances in terms of how we handle.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about,
Right.
So this isn't locked in now.
Correct.
We're
What
just
you're,
going to go with the contract for now.
correct. What you're talking about related to this discussion is more of a policy of how this council wants these things to be addressed.
Correct.
What this item is actually for is to sign the contract itself, which enters us into the legally binding business of paying for these services at those dollar rates.
So to get the ball rolling, we can approve this and then put this on the agenda for later fine tuning?
We certainly can.
Okay.
I don't know how you fine tune that myself, but I don't think we want to get into that tonight either.
No, we don't want to get into that tonight, but like fine tuning, because the way it's written here, if one person objects and the other 8 don't want it back,
But
this has to happen.
That's just the discussion part of the agenda memo. It's not the actual agreement with Paul.
Oh, I understand that.
So then really, if it's not in the actual agreement with Paul, then we can
Right.
Well,
I
then
think,
how-
I wrote this agenda, or this item, and I think my intent behind that was if somebody claims that it's their pet, they should be entitled to have it returned to them.
Correct. But that's not the way
But
it's worded.
if nobody says it's their pet, indoor or out, then what do you do with it?
Right.
But again, that's just the memo. That's not what you're approving. You're approving.
Well,
the agreement
and that
with
was the question that
clause.
was brought to me today about the rehoming. I
Right.
mean, there are places that you could rehome rather than
Right.
use the euthanasia.
I think euthanasia is a last resort. But again,
But it
we're off
doesn't
topic from
say all
what this
that
item
in-
Okay,
is.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
So with regard to the approval of the contract and authorizing the city manager to sign the contract, we completed all the discussion with regard to that. And it's a roll call vote.
Callahan?
Yes.
Houston?
Yes.
Hannah?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Posada?
Yes.
Laughlin?
Yes.
Jensen?
No. And how do we ask them to put on make sure that some of the stuff that's been asked of us is put into here as far as.
Policies and procedures.
We'd have to take it to a work session, but as
Right.
I said, all you did was approve Matt signing the agreement. What he has in the agenda memo is totally separate. It's just all.
It's just information.
And I understand.
Yeah, you're looking the same as I am for more clarification. That way you do away with assumptions.
So when we,
So can we get this on the next
We
work session?
Really shouldn't have any more discussion on it because the vote's been done. But we can talk about it at a future one, but we do need to, votes happen.
Right.
We need to move on.
Okay, moving to item E, which is the resolution to assess the property owner for Chapter 52 mowing of property's failure to comply. I need a motion to approve a resolution to assess the property owner for the Chapter 52 mowing of properties failure to comply and authorizing the mayor to sign the resolution.
So, second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
This is where they haven't paid the permit once.
There's only one individual here, right?
On this one.
Right. $208.53. Further discussion? Okay, roll call vote then.
Houston,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Potter,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Callahan. Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, move to other business, the disposal of city property. I need a motion to approve the sale of the current police dog to Jessica Honey, owner of Guardian K-9, in the amount of $1.
So moved.
The motion and a second. Talked about at the work session. K-9 isn't able to do the job that he was brought here to do, and as a result of that, we have a contract that allows us to replace the dog. It doesn't cost us any further money for the dog itself, but we have to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
A warranty.
Oh, a warranty, we have a warranty. So then we have to do something with the dog. So this particular organization, Guardian K-9, is an organization that would be able to do that in terms of the dog. So it's just a matter, because it's city property that we'd be disposing of. It's wrong, I don't like the word disposing. We need a motion to, in order, we have to pass a motion in order to do that. Any further discussion with regard to that? Okay, hearing none, that's a call for a roll call vote then.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Crusader,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Callahan.
Yes.
Houston.
Yes.
Next, we move to item B, which is the Commercial Restoration Rehabilitation Grant application. I need a motion to approve the Commercial Restoration Rehabilitation Grant for 117 First Street East in the amount of $3,149.31.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This is for the Sanity Room, and they're looking to replace front windows and the doors, and this is the calculation in terms of what staff is recommending that meets the requirements under our program for the renovation. Discussion. Hearing none, we would move to a roll call vote.
Moore,
Yes.
Crusader,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Callahan.
Yes.
Houston.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to reports. Is there any issues that any of the council members would like to raise at this time?
Phone call regarding the closure of First Nation, and it affected me also. I do moving on the side. I had to take trash up for one of the people
Lean forward. Thanks.
one of the people that I
Thank you.
performed services for, and was unable to do so. So trash.
Did we get any type of notice other than what we heard about this morning that I saw on Facebook?
All I received was an email from Independence Light and Power that their waste management was experiencing issues with the transfer station being closed. They were going to take a look at it and hopefully be able to tomorrow. That's the last thing.
Or- Okay. Do you have something else, Mike, too? Okay,
I do have a couple things.
sure.
The annual wine and alcohol. Friday sale starts November 24th.
Nothing.
The best thing that I heard about was to honor the souls that we lost on September 11, 2001, is to enjoy our freedoms and pray for all those people in the world that suffer under tyranny or don't have the freedom.
Let's see, so there's been some discussion about CDBG grant applications in round 3 facades. That was briefly talked about during the work session, I think. I brought it up at the end of that meeting. We cannot apply for that until our current project is completed. So there won't be an application this year for that, but we're planning to look at doing that in 2024. That, of course, will come back to this body for approval to apply for that when the time comes. I talked with the owner of the lot behind Brick Kitchen, Bank, Iowa, related to the parking issue that's back there. They are not interested in selling that property. The bank, at this point, doesn't have any desire to do anything with it, so not anything really there, unfortunately. But I just wanted to report that back. Blue Buffalo is having a job fair tomorrow. I want to let everybody know that that's going on. We will have, for our next council meeting on the 25th, we'll have our new agenda software in place for that. Everybody should have gotten an email from me, I think, hopefully with links that worked so that you guys can, the second time. So
Oh, did you
Mine
send
didn't.
I sent a second.
The old ones didn't work.
I sent a second email yesterday, and that one should have, those links should work.
Okay.
I did, it didn't for me. It
The
just,
second one didn't?
just kept circling.
Okay.
So I opened it up by the usual way.
Okay.
So the new one,
I'll try
the
it
new one
again.
came yesterday then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tried Friday, I couldn't get that.
Yeah, the one that I sent Friday, it's a long story about why it doesn't work, but the ones that I sent yesterday are actually hosted on the city system, so they should open for you.
I'll try it again.
Yeah, give it a shot, see if it works.
May I have,
In here, but it might have been the old one. I couldn't get into.
My computer doesn't accept cookies, so that's why it wouldn't allow it to.
may I ask a question? The Blue Buffalo is holding a work,
They're holding a job fair tomorrow for their current employees to help them find work.
to help them find.
Do you know what time those are, Matt, by chance?
I don't have a time for it off the top of my head now.
I think it's fine.
For sure, it's probably tomorrow afternoon, so that sounds right,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, and then the only other thing I was going to point out, I will be at the ICMA conference in Austin, Texas for the October. So I won't be at that work session, but we can put an item on there to discuss policy for treatment and disposal of feral cats if the body would like to do that.
You sure you want to do it then and not do it in the November one?
I would suggest you wait till November, but it's up to this body to decide. If they would like to see it on the October work session, we can certainly do that.
I'd
only reason
rather
I-
you be here when we discuss
Yeah,
it.
the only reason I suggested is I'd rather him be here, and also because we may be changing some type, dealing with the ordinances and some changes that might be necessary. I want to make sure that he's had an opportunity to look at the current ones and everybody, get that information to everybody so that we can make an educated decision with regard to what we're doing. going
Yeah.
forward.
We'll plan on it for November then.
November, sounds good.
Okay. That's all I've got.
Susie, anything?
I have the ordinances that were from the 2023 legislative update done, and they are effective. So if your book is not here, I need you to bring it in, please, and thank you.
Okay, need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.